On his wedding night, the poor rancher stepped forward with hope in his heart. Believing this strange marriage might finally end his loneliness, he had traded dignity for survival, accepting a bride he barely knew in exchange for a single cow that could keep him alive. As he entered the small room, his hands trembled with nervous hope, but before he could speak, the door slammed shut behind him. The sharp sound echoed like a warning. Then came the click of the lock. His heart dropped. The woman stood between him and the door, her breathing uneven, her shadow shaking on the wall. In that moment, joy turned into fear. He wondered why she locked it, what she was hiding, and what kind of life he had stepped into. His mind raced with dark thoughts of regret and danger. This was not how a wedding night was supposed to feel. What he believed was a simple deal was now turning into something frightening, and he realized too late that this marriage carried a secret powerful enough to change his life forever. The story follows a poor rancher who owned nothing except one small piece of dry land that barely fed him. He lived alone at the edge of the village, waking up each day to hunger and sleeping each night with heavy silence. People mocked his torn clothes and empty home, calling him unlucky and useless, words that slowly broke his spirit. That he worked harder than anyone, yet fate never rewarded him. When his last animal died, hope almost disappeared. That was when an offer reached him, a strange marriage in exchange for a single cow. The cow meant food, milk, and survival, but the bride was a complete stranger. He knew the deal felt wrong, yet desperation silenced his fear. With no family, no respect, and no future left to protect, he accepted the offer, believing this one decision might finally change his fate. He did not know that this choice would lead him into a life far more complex than poverty, a life where emotions would hurt deeper than hunger and where survival would demand more than strength. The woman arrived quietly the next morning, stepping onto his land as if she feared the ground itself. She was wrapped in heavy clothes that hid her body completely, her head lowered, her hands clenched together like she was holding back years of pain. She did not look around or ask questions. She simply stood there waiting, as if this place was not a home but a sentence. The rancher noticed how she avoided his eyes, how her voice barely rose above a whisper when she greeted him, each word sounding practiced and careful. Her eyes carried a deep sadness that could not be hidden, not even behind silence. The villagers gathered nearby, pretending to help but really there to stare and judge. They whispered cruel things, pointing fingers, calling her names and mocking her appearance, turning the moment into quiet humiliation. The rancher heard every word, but he chose to ignore them. He remembered his own years of being laughed at, and instead of shame, he felt a strange sense of understanding. That he guided her inside, without touching her, offering water and food. But she hesitated before accepting, as if kindness confused her. He noticed how she flinched at sudden sounds, how she kept distance even while sitting, how her eyes searched for exits rather than comfort. The house felt smaller with her silence filling every corner. Yet the rancher felt responsible for her safety. He told himself that pain makes people distant, and that patience could soften even the hardest hearts. As the day passed, she moved carefully, doing small tasks without being asked, never complaining, never resting, as if proving her worth through exhaustion. The rancher watched her quietly, realizing this marriage was not only strange but heavy with untold history. He wondered what kind of life had taught her to trust no one and expect nothing. As evening approached, the whispers outside faded, but their echo remained in the air. That he prepared a simple meal and placed it between them, but she waited for him to eat first, her fear hidden behind obedience. That moment tightened his chest. He did not want control. He wanted peace. He spoke gently, assuring her she was safe here, but she only nodded without belief. When night fell, the oil lamp flickered, casting long shadows that made the room feel uneasy. She stood up suddenly and excused herself, locking herself in the small room meant for them. The rancher sat alone, confused yet calm, believing time would heal what words could not. He lay down outside the door, choosing distance over force, thinking kindness would slowly unlock whatever fear lived inside her. He did not know that behind that closed door, the woman was fighting memories that refused to stay buried, and that the silence between them was not emptiness but a warning of emotions powerful enough to change both their lives forever. When the night grew deeper and the house fell silent, the rancher slowly stood and pushed the door open. Believing it was time to face the awkward truth of their marriage, he stepped inside carefully, not wanting to frighten her. But the moment his foot crossed the threshold, the bride turned suddenly and slammed the door shut. The sound cracked through the room like thunder, stealing the air from his lungs. He watched in shock as she twisted the lock with trembling fingers, her breath uneven, her shoulders shaking as if she was holding herself together by force. The small room felt tighter, heavier, filled with fear that did not belong to him. Her hands would not stop shaking, and when she finally spoke, her voice broke apart, each word struggling to escape her throat. She begged him to stay where he was, not to come closer, not to touch her, not to ask questions. The rancher raised his hands slowly, confused and hurt, but more concerned than angry that he realized this was not rejection born from dislike, but terror carved deep inside her. His heart pounded as he searched her face for answers and found only panic mixed with shame. She pressed her back against the door as if expecting it to break, her eyes wide. With memories he could not see, the oil lamp flickered violently, casting broken shadows across the walls, making the moment feel unreal. The rancher took a step back, his voice calm despite the storm in his chest, asking softly what frightened her so badly. But she shook her head, tears slipping down without sound. The air felt thick with unspoken pain, and the silence between them screamed louder than words. He understood then that something was deeply wrong, that this fear did not come from him but from a past that still controlled her. He felt helpless standing there, watching his wedding night turn into a moment of quiet horror. He had expected discomfort, maybe distance, but not this level of dread. His dreams of companionship collapsed into confusion, yet he refused to let frustration guide him. He sat down slowly on the floor to show he meant no harm, keeping space between them, letting the fear settle instead of fighting it. She watched him carefully, her breathing slowly easing but her guard never falling. The locked door now felt symbolic, not a barrier against him, but against the world that had broken her before she arrived here. The rancher realized this marriage was no ordinary union. It was a collision of two wounded lives, and tonight had revealed a truth heavier than poverty. He stayed silent, choosing patience over pride, knowing that forcing answers would only deepen the fear. As the lamp dimmed and the night stretched on, he understood that whatever secret lived inside her had already changed everything, and the real test of his character had only just begun. The silence stretched until her shoulders slowly dropped and the shaking eased enough for her to speak. She did not look at him when her words finally came, but they carried the weight of years she had never shared with anyone. She told him she had once trusted people who promised safety and respect only to abandon her when she was no longer useful. She spoke of being passed from place to place, judged by her body and mocked for her looks, treated like something to be traded rather than a person. Each memory fell from her lips carefully, as if saying too much might break her. She explained how laughter had followed her everywhere, how whispers turned into open cruelty, how rejection taught her that kindness always came with conditions. Her voice cracked when she admitted she had learned to expect harm instead of care, and how every closed space reminded her of moments when she had no control. She finally looked at him then, tears filling her eyes as she explained the locked door was never meant to trap him, that it was the only way she knew to feel safe, to create a barrier between herself and another night of pain. She said fear controlled her reactions before trust ever had a chance to grow. The rancher listened without interrupting, his chest tightening with every word as understanding replaced confusion. He saw how humiliation had shaped her silence and how betrayal had taught her to defend herself first. He realized her distance was not coldness, but survival. She admitted she had agreed to this marriage because she believed a poor man might not judge her as harshly as others had. But even hope scared her. She feared disappointment more than loneliness and rejection more than hunger. As she spoke, the room felt less heavy, as if truth was slowly pushing fear aside. The rancher remained seated, his eyes steady, his posture open, showing he was still listening. She waited for anger or blame, but none came. Instead, she saw something unfamiliar in his expression, not pity but respect. That moment made her cry harder because it was something she had never been given before. He told her softly that he had also lived under judgment, that poverty had taught him what it felt like to be invisible. He said he did not buy her with a cow, and he did not expect anything she could not give freely. His words did not promise miracles, but they carried honesty. She unlocked the door slowly, not because the fear vanished, but because she felt heard. The click of the lock sounded different this time, not sharp, but gentle, like a door opening inside her chest. She stepped away from the wall and sat down, still cautious, but no longer trapped by panic. The rancher did not move closer. Choosing patience over urgency, he understood healing could not be rushed and trust could not be demanded. As the night continued, they sat apart, yet connected by shared wounds. Both realizing this marriage was no longer a bargain, but a fragile beginning shaped by truth, courage, and the quiet decision to stop running from pain. The rancher remained where he was, letting the quiet settle naturally instead of filling it with promises he could not keep. He did not move closer or reach out. Even though every part of him wanted to ease her pain, he chose restraint, understanding that respect sometimes meant distance. He told her she did not owe him anything, not trust, not closeness, not explanations beyond what she was ready to give. He said she could lock the door whenever she needed and sleep wherever she felt safest, even if that meant separate rooms or separate nights. His voice carried no demand, only certainty that her comfort mattered more than tradition. That choice stunned her because it was unfamiliar. She had learned to expect control disguised as care, but his words carried no hidden cost. He stood up slowly, not to approach, but to step farther away, showing her that safety was not something he would argue about. He placed a blanket on the chair and said he would sleep outside if that helped her breathe easier. She watched him carefully, waiting for irritation or disappointment to surface, but it never did. Instead, she saw something steady and rare, patience without conditions. That moment shifted something inside her chest, a quiet crack in the wall she had built for survival. She realized his kindness was not loud or dramatic. It was deliberate and consistent. He did not see her fear as an obstacle, but as something worthy of respect. As the night passed, he spoke softly about simple things, the land, the seasons, the way animals healed when given time, never asking questions that cornered her. She listened from her side of the room, still, guarded, but no longer trembling. The locked door no longer felt like a shield against him, but a habit she was slowly releasing. He kept his promise of space through actions rather than words, never crossing lines she had not drawn herself. That restraint changed the air between them from tension to possibility. She understood that safety was not about walls or locks, but about choice, about being allowed to say no without punishment. When morning light crept through the window, he was still there, awake, keeping distance as he had promised. That consistency reached her deeper than sympathy ever could. She realized this man was poor in wealth but rich in restraint, a quality she had never experienced before. His unexpected choice rewrote the meaning of marriage in her mind, turning it from a trap into a space where healing might be allowed. She did not suddenly trust him, but she no longer feared him, and that difference felt enormous. He did not try to claim her pain or fix her past. He simply made room for her to exist without defense. In that quiet morning, without grand words or dramatic gestures, everything changed. The marriage stopped being a bargain and became a slow agreement built on respect, patience, and the rare understanding that real safety is given, not taken. The days that followed moved gently, each one adding a thin layer of calm over old fear, and without noticing when it began, trust started to grow. She began waking earlier, stepping outside to feel the morning air without flinching, watching the rancher work without feeling watched herself. He never rushed her or questioned her pace, and that consistency slowly softened the sharp edges inside her. She started helping in small ways, feeding animals, cleaning tools, learning the land, and with every shared task, the silence between them became lighter. She spoke more, not about the past, but about simple things, the sky, the weather, the taste of food, and sometimes she even laughed quietly, as if surprised by the sound of her own voice. The rancher noticed those moments and felt a strength rising within him that had nothing to do with muscle or pride. That he learned patience beyond survival. learning how to listen without fixing and how to stand firm without controlling, that he discovered that real courage was shown in restraint and care, not in force or demand.As trust formed. The locked doors stayed open longer, the distance between them shortened naturally, and fear slowly lost its grip. She no longer startled at his presence, and he no longer worried about every step he took. They began sharing meals side by side, then conversations, then moments of comfortable quiet where nothing needed to be said. Her smile returned in fragments at first, hesitant and unsure, but each time it appeared, it stayed a little longer. He realized those smiles meant more than any reward he had ever chased because they were earned through respect rather than expectation. She saw him differently too, not as a man who owned land, but as one who protected peace. She noticed how he spoke gently to animals, how he fixed broken things patiently, and how he never raised his voice, even when tired. That steadiness gave her room to breathe and slowly to heal. They were still imperfect, still cautious, but their bond formed through understanding rather than appearance or agreement. She learned that she was allowed to exist without proving her worth, and he learned that care did not make him weak. As weeks passed, the ranch felt warmer, not richer, but fuller. Laughter replaced tension and routine replaced fear. They did not rush intimacy or labels, allowing connection to form at its own pace. That choice made their bond honest and lasting. The rancher found strength in being trusted, and she found safety in being respected. Their pasts did not disappear, but they stopped controlling the present. Together, they created something neither had known before, a quiet partnership built on shared effort and mutual dignity. In that slow healing, they both realized that love does not arrive loudly or perfectly. It grows steadily when two broken lives choose patience over fear and understanding over judgment. What began as a desperate deal slowly transformed into a life neither of them expected. The cow that once symbolized survival faded into the background as dignity and compassion took its place. The rancher did not become rich in land or gold, but he gained something far greater: a partner who chose to stay, a home filled with calm, and a purpose rooted in care. The woman found more than shelter. She found respect that healed wounds no apology ever could. Together, they proved that broken beginnings do not decide final outcomes. Their story closed quietly, without applause or celebration, but with something stronger than happiness: peace. The villagers eventually stopped whispering because nothing speaks louder than consistent kindness. In the end, the ranch stood not as a place of poverty, but as proof that humanity outweighs appearance and patience reshapes fate. Their lives became a reminder that real value is never measured by looks, wealth, or bargains, but by how deeply one's soul honors another. And that truth lingered long after the story ended.